You know, usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there is this expectation of total precision.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you break your arm, you go to the hospital, and the x-ray shows that jagged white line on the black background. The doctor just points at the screen and says, well, there it is. There is the fracture.
Right. It is very clean. It is clinical. There is absolutely no ambiguity there.
Yeah.
Broken or not broken.
Yeah, we really like things to be visible like that. We want our reality categorized neatly into little sterile boxes where everything has one single definition and one single function.
Which is very much a modern Western way of thinking.
It is, but then you step into the world of ancient languages and suddenly that x-ray machine just shatters.
Yeah, it really does.
You realize pretty quickly that ancient people did not categorize the world the way we do. We are looking at a linguistic landscape that is, well, it is murky, it is organic, and constantly shifting around.
It is the absolute definition of diagnostic muddy waters. And I think that is what makes ancient linguistics so fascinating to investigate.
Yeah.
When you look at an ancient Hebrew root word, you are not looking at a sterile single-use tool lying on an operating table. You are looking at a living organism that adapts and changes depending on its environment.
I love that analogy. It is alive.
Right. A single word can carry the weight of a physical action, a political treaty, a religious ritual, and a military strategy, all at the exact same time. The ancient mind just did not compartmentalize life into secular and sacred, or physical and abstract.
No, they saw it all as connected.
They really did.
Yeah.
Everything was part of a unified reality orchestrated by a sovereign God.
Well, on that note, welcome to this deep dive of Reformed thinking. We are thrilled you are here with us today.
So glad to have you joining the conversation.
We are laying out a very specific target for our time together. We are looking at a single Hebrew root word. It is 3 consonants, nun, shin, kof, pronounced Nāshaq.
Right.
And by the end of this deep dive, you are going to understand how this one single root connects the intimate scent of a family greeting, a king's military armory, the severe rituals of idol worship, and the rustling wings of angelic creatures.
I mean, it sounds almost impossible when you list them out like that, doesn't it?
It really does. It sounds like a random grab bag of concepts.
Yeah, those concepts seem totally isolated from one another in our modern English framework. But in the ancient Near East, there is a distinct thread connecting all of them. Pulling on that thread reveals a stunning view of how human action and divine order intersect.
Which is what we are here to uncover.
Right. We are drawing from some of the most rigorous lexical data available today. We are looking at cross-linguistic evidence from the broader Semitic family tree to figure out what this word actually meant to the people who spoke it thousands of years ago.
Okay, let's unpack this. The data gives us 2 distinct branches for this word, labeled as root 1 and root 2.
Yeah, let's start with root 1.
So starting with root I, the most basic baseline translation of neshiqah is to kiss. But the lexical data immediately throws us a curveball here.
A huge one.
When we look at the sister languages in the Semitic family tree, we see something pretty bizarre. The Arabic cognate neshiqah means to smell.
Right, which shifts the whole sense of the word.
Yeah, and meanwhile, the Akkadian word Nāshaq was also related to kissing. So right away, we have this blending of the olfactory system and the tactile system.
The senses are totally intertwined.
It makes me wonder about the physical reality of the ancient world. Does the link to the Arabic word for smell suggest that ancient kisses were more like a close contact intake of scent?
That is a brilliant question.
I am thinking about how animals recognize each other, A flock of sheep or a pack of wolves, they don't shake hands. They rely entirely on scent to establish identity, safety, and belonging.
They absolutely do.
So did ancient human greetings carry a similar tactile, scent-based reality compared to the formal, sanitized handshake we use today?
The textual evidence strongly supports that line of thought.
Yeah.
We really have to strip away our modern obsession with hygiene and personal space to understand this.
That is hard for us to do.
It is. The ancient world was intensely physical and sensory. People lived in agrarian societies. They worked in the dirt. They tended flocks. They walked miles in the arid heat.
And no modern plumbing, obviously.
Right. There was no air conditioning, no daily hot showers, no synthetic deodorants. A person's scent was a distinct, unavoidable part of their identity. It told you where they had been, what kind of work they did, and who they belonged to.
That makes total sense. So scent was basically an ancient ID card.
That is a great way to put it. When we look at the qual stem of neshiqah, which is the simple active form of the verb, we see it used frequently to denote family affection. And scent is explicitly tied to this kind of recognition in the biblical narrative.
Oh, like with Isaac and Jacob.
Yes, think about Genesis 27. Isaac is old and blind, and Jacob comes to him seeking the patriarchal blessing under false pretenses. Isaac is suspicious because the voice sounds like Jacob, but the hands feel like Esau.
Because he had the animal skins on his arms.
Right, the skins. So what does Isaac do? He says, "Come near and kiss me, my son." Jacob leans in and kisses him. And the very next thing the text says is that Isaac smelled the scent of his garments.
Wow, okay.
The kiss brought Jacob close enough for Isaac to take in the scent. Once Isaac smells what he believes is the outdoors, the fields, the hunt, he blesses him. He says the smell of his son is like the smell of a field the Lord has blessed.
So the kiss and the smelling are just a unified action.
They are completely inseparable in that moment.
The kiss isn't just a polite pressing of lips to a cheek. It is a deliberate invasion of personal space to verify the identity of the person standing in front of you.
Yes, exactly, or rather precisely that.
It brings the face close enough to take in the scent, to confirm that this person really belongs to your tribe, your family.
Yes, and the lexical data notes that the qual stem of NHHQ is frequently paired with prepositions to indicate direction. It shows this deliberate physical movement toward another person.
So it is an active approaching.
Right. We see dozens of examples of this basic family affection throughout the patriarchal narratives. You have Jacob kissing Rachel when they first meet at the well, Genesis 29.
And he didn't even know her that well yet, right?
He doesn't know her well at all, but she is family. And the physical greeting establishes that bond immediately. Then you have the incredibly tense dramatic reunion of Esau and Jacob in Genesis 33.
Oh man, that scene is so stressful to read.
It really is. Jacob is terrified that Esau is going to slaughter him and his entire family. He bows down to the ground 7 times as he approaches. But Esau runs to meet him, throws his arms around his neck, and kisses him.
Such a powerful moment of grace.
And again, in Genesis 50, after Jacob passes away, Joseph falls on his father's face, weeps over him, and kisses him. This is an incredibly grounded physical reality.
It really is. When we think of a greeting today, especially in Western cultures, we maintain a very rigid bubble of personal space.
We do. We love our personal space.
We extend an arm for a handshake, keeping the other person at a highly calculated distance. We might offer a quick hug, but it is usually brief and carefully managed.
Lots of patting on the back to signal it is over.
Yes. We don't want to smell the other person. We don't want to feel the sweat on their skin. We want the social interaction without the sensory vulnerability.
Which is a very sanitized, almost artificial way of interacting, if you really think about it.
Right.
The ancient Near Eastern greeting, encapsulated in the qual use of NSHQ, requires absolute vulnerability and trust. You are letting someone close enough to your face to breathe in their scent, to feel the dirt and sweat of their travels on their skin.
That is so intimate.
Language naturally evolves from these immediate, tangible sensory experiences into formalized gestures of affection. The physical reality precedes the abstract concept.
So the action of smelling became the gesture of kissing.
Right. The word for kissing is tied to the word for smelling, because for centuries, the two actions were indistinguishable in practice.
Okay, so if the qual stem is the baseline, the simple action of kissing, greeting, smelling, and showing affection, how do we handle the escalation of this word?
What do you mean?
Because looking at the data, the Hebrew language has a built-in mechanism to turn up the volume on a verb, moving us into the Piel stem.
Ah, yes. This is where the architecture of the Hebrew language does something brilliant.
I find this part so fascinating.
In English, if we want to escalate an action, we have to add adverbs. We run quickly, we cry loudly. But biblical Hebrew modifies the internal structure of the word itself.
So the word literally changes shape.
Yes, the Piel stem brings repetition, magnification, or intensity to the baseline action. So instead of the simple Nāshaq, you get forms like Nāshaq or Nāshaq. The action is magnified in its scope or its emotional weight.
Let me push back a bit here because this is where modern readers get tripped up. When we hear the phrase intense kissing, our modern minds immediately jump to romantic passion.
Of course they do.
We have been conditioned by centuries of literature, movies, and music to associate intense physical contact exclusively with physical romance. But looking at the sources, that is not the case at all. The texts cited for the Piel stem seem entirely familial, not romantic.
That is a crucial distinction, and our modern categories absolutely fail us here.
Right.
The data highlights several specific uses of the Piel stem, and they are overwhelmingly familial. We see it in Genesis 29.13. Laban hears the news about his nephew Jacob arriving from a distant land.
And he runs out to see him.
Right, Laban runs to meet him, embraces him, and kisses him intensely. Nāshaq. We see it again in Genesis 31:28. Jacob has fled from Laban secretly, and when Laban finally catches up to him, he is furious.
Because he didn't get to say goodbye.
Yes. Laban complains that Jacob left so suddenly he didn't even get to kiss his daughters and grandchildren goodbye.
So the intensity is about the volume of people or the sheer magnitude of the familial bond, not a romantic encounter.
That's right.
It's an uncle greeting a nephew he has never met, or a grandfather wanting to say a final goodbye to his entire household. The sheer volume of the action demands the Piel stem.
Precisely. It is about the magnitude of the emotion and the scope of the action. The most striking example in the textual data is Genesis 45:15.
Oh, this scene. This is the absolute climax of the Joseph narrative.
It really is. Think about the historical backdrop here. Joseph was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused of assault, and left to rot in an Egyptian dungeon for years.
Lifetime of trauma.
Yes, but through the sovereign providence of God, he is raised up to become the vizier of Egypt, second only to Pharaoh. A massive famine hits, and his brothers, the very men who plotted his murder, are standing in front of him begging for grain.
And they have no idea it is him.
They don't recognize him at all. They are terrified, thinking they are about to be executed or enslaved by this harsh Egyptian ruler.
The psychological tension in that room must have been suffocating.
Unbearable.
Joseph is looking at the faces of the men who ruined his life, but they are also his flesh and blood. They are the only connection he has to his father. And when he finally sends his attendants out of the room and reveals his identity, it is like a dam breaking.
It is a total emotional collapse. And when the text describes what happens next, it uses the Piel stem of neshiqah.
The intense form.
Yes. Joseph weeps so loudly that the Egyptians standing outside the room can hear him. And then the text says he kissed all his brothers and wept over them.
He didn't just stand at the front of the room and give them a polite, formal pardon.
No. He didn't give them a quick peck on the cheek either. He went to Reuben, the oldest, who's failed to protect him. He went to Simeon and Levi, the violent ones.
He went to Judah, the one who suggested selling him in the first place.
Yes. He embraced 11 different men, one by one. The intensity of the Piel stem here indicates the sheer volume of emotion, the uncontrollable weeping, and the physical reality of embracing the men who had caused him so much trauma.
It is a magnification of the action's emotional weight.
Right, a total release of decades of sorrow, longing, and eventual reconciliation.
What a brilliant way to communicate that scene. We have to completely strip away our modern, Western, romanticized lenses when we read these ancient texts.
We really do. It changes everything.
When the Hebrew uses the Piel stem for neshiqah, it is describing a tidal wave of familial reconciliation. It is a robust, noisy, tear-soaked reality. It is messy.
Very messy.
It involves weeping, embracing, and physically moving through a room of 11 terrified men to assure them of their safety.
It shows how the ancient writers used the very architecture of their language to paint a vivid psychological picture.
The grammar itself conveys the emotion.
Yeah, you don't need a string of adverbs to explain how Joseph felt. The Piel stem does the heavy lifting. It tells the reader that this was not a standard greeting. This was an overwhelming, repetitive, intense, physical demonstration of grace.
Okay, so we have established neshiqah as this tender, tear-soaked familial embrace. Whether it is the qual stem showing the baseline necessity of scent and recognition, or the Piel stem showing the overwhelming intensity of familial reconciliation.
Right, both are very positive.
But the data reveals that not all physical affection in the ancient world was directed at family. In fact, there is a darker, much more subversive use of neshiqah that completely flips this intimacy on its head.
Yes, the data is very clear that this word was heavily utilized in the vocabulary of ancient idolatry. And to understand why, we have to look at how the physical gesture of a kiss also denotes allegiance, worship, and reverence.
It is jarring. I mean, how does a word used for Joseph forgiving his brothers become a tool of cosmic treason?
It happens because the human heart takes the intimacy designed for the Creator and redirects it toward the created.
That is a tragic reality.
It is. The texts cite 1 Kings 19:18 as a prime example. Elijah the prophet is hiding in a cave at Mount Horeb. He has just won a massive victory over the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel, but now he is running for his life from Queen Jezebel.
He is at rock bottom.
He is severely depressed, physically exhausted, and he believes he is the absolute only person left on earth who still worships the true God.
He feels totally isolated.
Right. He complains to God that the entire nation has apostatized, broken the covenant, and torn down the altars. And God responds by correcting his theology and his statistics.
I love that. God gives him the actual
He
numbers.
does. God says, I've kept for myself 7,000 in Israel, all the knees that have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth that has not kissed him.
Wait, so there was an actual physical ritual of kissing the idol? It wasn't just a metaphor for false belief?
It was not a metaphor.
Hmm.
The Israelites were physically walking up to statues of Baal and pressing their lips against them.
We see the same exact behavior condemned in Hosea 13.2, right?
We do.
The prophet Hosea is indicting the northern kingdom of Israel for their relentless idolatry. He says they sin more and more, making molten images of silver according to their own understanding, all of them the work of craftsmen.
And then he points out the absurdity of it.
Yeah, the text specifically notes the absurdity of the ritual. It says men who kiss calf idols.
Just picturing that is unsettling.
It really is. A human being made in the image of the living God, endowed with breath and reason, walking up to a piece of molded metal and kissing it.
It is complete perversion of the familial intimacy we just talked about.
Instead of kissing a father or a brother to recognize their shared life and breath, they're offering that intimate allegiance to a dead, silent, cold block of material. It is the ultimate degradation of human dignity.
It speaks to a massive theological reality for all of us. Human beings are inherently wired for worship.
We have to worship something.
We are going to give our allegiance to something. We'll direct our affections somewhere. If we do not direct it toward the sovereign God, we will inevitably direct it towards something we have manufactured.
Which is terrifying.
But the data points to an even more insidious form of this idolatry, one that didn't even require a physical statue in the room.
If we are talking about idolatry without a statue, I assume we are looking at the reference in Job 31. This blew my mind when I read the background material.
It is one of the most revealing texts regarding the psychology of ancient paganism. In Job chapter 31, Job is defending his integrity.
He is going through this massive list of moral failures he has explicitly avoided.
Right. He says he hasn't committed adultery, he hasn't oppressed his servants, he hasn't put his trust in gold, and he hasn't rejoiced at the ruin of his enemies.
A very thorough moral inventory.
Yes, and right in the middle of this intense list, in verse 27, he says, if I looked at the sun when it shone, or the moon moving in splendor, and my heart was secretly enticed, and my hand hath kissed my mouth.
My hand has kissed my mouth. He is literally talking about blowing a kiss.
He is. The scholars identify this as a specific act of astral worship.
Okay, tell me more about that.
In the ancient Near East, when a person saw the celestial bodies, the sun providing warmth and light, or the moon moving in its cycle, and felt a sense of awe or dependency, the pagan response was to touch their hand to their mouth and throw a kiss toward the sky.
Wow.
It was a way of venerating the heavenly bodies when you couldn't physically reach them. The data even connects this to ancient Roman practices much later in history, citing Pliny the Elder, who documented that kissing the right hand and turning the body was a standard form of reverence to the gods.
Think about how casual blowing a kiss is in contemporary culture.
Oh, it means nothing today.
Right. It is something you do when you are logging off a Zoom meeting with your family or dropping your kids off at the school gates. It is a light, breezy, almost meaningless gesture. It's something a toddler does to be cute.
But in the ancient world, it was a definitive, damning act of allegiance to a false deity.
Job recognizes that even this tiny, seemingly harmless physical movement, lifting the hand to the lips and tossing a kiss to the moon, would be an iniquity to be punished by the judges.
Because of what it represented?
Yeah, because, as Job states in the very next verse, it would mean denying the God who is above.
It is wild how physical gestures carry immense cultural weight, completely changing meaning depending on the era.
It really makes you think. To us, blowing a kiss is playful affection. To Job, it was spiritual adultery. It was a rejection of the sovereign creator in favor of the created thing.
Right, the sun and the moon were created by God to govern the day and night.
But the human heart looks at them and says, I will give my affection to the lamp instead of the one who lit it.
Which perfectly highlights the internal nature of idolatry. Notice what Job says before the physical action happens. His heart was secretly enticed.
The heart comes first.
Always. The physical gesture of the hand kissing the mouth was just the outward manifestation of an inward rebellion. It demonstrates how our physical bodies are tied to our spiritual condition.
A simple motion of the hand and lips can declare your theological position in the universe.
It is a physical declaration of where your trust lies.
Okay, so we have seen the scent of family greeting, and we have seen the severe ritual of idol worship. We have covered familial allegiance and religious allegiance.
Two major pillars of ancient life.
Now, the data forces us to look at political allegiance, because Nāshaq takes another sharp turn here. We have to talk about the kiss of submission.
This is where the intersection of theology and politics becomes highly visible. The data directs us to Psalm 2, specifically verse 12.
Psalm 2 is a massive, incredibly significant text.
It sets the tone for so much biblical theology.
It is a royal psalm describing the rebellion of the nations against God and his anointed king. The nations are raging, the peoples are plotting in vain, the kings of the earth take their stand against the Lord.
You want to break free.
Yeah, they want to cast off the cords of divine rule. They view God's sovereignty as a restriction, a set of chains they need to break. And God's response is to sit in the heavens and laugh at their futile rebellion, installing his king on Zion.
And the command given to these rebellious kings and rulers of the earth is found in verse 12. In the Piel imperative, that stem of intense action we discussed earlier, the text says, Nāshaq.
Kiss the sun.
Yes, kiss the sun.
Kiss the sun, lest he be angry and you perish in the way.
The linguistic data here is fascinating. Some scholars note that the word bar can mean sun, or possibly pure, or even ground in some obscure readings.
Okay, lots of options.
Right. But the prevailing lexical view regarding a kiss of submission is that this represents a mandatory oath of fidelity to the conqueror. You kiss the anointed king to promise fidelity and avoid utter destruction.
It is a terrifying image, honestly.
It is not meant to be comforting for the rebels.
It is not the tender kiss of Jacob and Esau where two brothers weep on each other's necks. It is the kiss of a vanquished enemy acknowledging total defeat and absolute subjugation.
You are kissing the one who has the authority to end your life.
You are kneeling in the dirt, recognizing that your rebellion has failed, and your only hope for survival is to offer physical submission to the sovereign.
The Akkadian parallels in the data give us a gruesome picture of how this played out in the ancient Near East.
I read some of those in the notes. It is brutal.
The text mentioned the phrase Nāshaq, which translates to kissing the feet. When an Assyrian or Babylonian emperor conquered a vassal state, the defeated king didn't just sign a treaty at a desk.
No, it was much more visceral than that.
He was brought before the emperor, often stripped of his royal garments, and forced to literally kiss the ground or the feet of the conqueror. It is a physical demonstration of yielding all sovereignty.
You bring your face, the most vulnerable sensory part of your body, down to the dirt, right to the feet of the one who owns you.
Yes. Which brings us to the most debated, complicated passage in our entire stack of texts. Genesis 41:40.
Okay, yes. We are back in Egypt with Joseph.
Setting the scene here, Pharaoh has just heard Joseph interpret the dreams about the coming famine. Pharaoh realizes that Joseph has the Spirit of God in him, and he decides to elevate Joseph to the position of vizier over all of Egypt.
Second in command of the most powerful empire on earth.
Right. He takes off his royal signet ring, puts it on Joseph's finger, dresses him in fine linen, puts a gold chain around his neck, and issues a national decree.
And the Hebrew text says, Alpika yishak kolami. Literally translated, according to thy word or according to thy mouth, shall all my people yishak.
And this is where the translators, the commentators, and the lexicons lock horns. What does yishak, derived from the root NSHQ, actually mean in this specific political and administrative context?
The conflicting views are laid out beautifully in the data. Does Pharaoh mean the people of Egypt will literally kiss Joseph as a sign of submission? Or does it mean something entirely different, like they will dispose themselves or yield to his administrative commands?
The debate centers on how strictly we adhere to the semantics of root I. If we stick strictly to root I, the baseline meaning is to kiss.
Right.
So the literal translation would be, upon your mouth, all my people shall kiss. Some commentators argue this means they will declare their fidelity and submission, just like the rebel kings in Psalm 2.
So they see it as a political kiss.
They argue that the Egyptians will kiss Joseph in a ceremonial act of homage, acknowledging his absolute authority over the food supply.
I have to admit, to you and to our listener, that feels incredibly clunky.
It really does.
The logistical awkwardness of this interpretation is massive. We just talked about how an Akkadian-conquered king might kiss the feet of the emperor, but having the entire population of Egypt literally kiss the mouth or even the hand of the vizier seems staggering.
It doesn't scale well at all.
Millions of people are starving, looking for grain, and the administrative decree is that they all have to line up and physically kiss Joseph. That seems entirely out of step with how ancient Egyptian bureaucracies functioned.
And the ancient translators agreed with your skepticism. When we look at the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Old Testament, and the Onkelos Targum and the Latin Vulgate, they all leaned away from a literal kiss.
What did they use instead?
They translated it using words that mean to adjust, to submit, or to be ruled. The phrase alpika means according to your mouth or according to your command.
So, according to your command, my people shall kiss. It just feels disjointed. It's like trying to force a square peg into a round hole.
Contextually, it is a struggle.
The context is a national administrative crisis regarding food storage and distribution, not a religious ceremony or a military surrender.
Exactly. I mean, that is spot on, which is why the modern lexicons propose a brilliant paradigm-shifting alternative.
Okay, let's hear it.
What if the Septuagint and the Vulgate were right to translate it as adjust or dispose themselves? If the meaning is yield or order themselves, it solves the contextual problem perfectly.
So Joseph gives a command, and the people obey.
Right. Joseph is a command regarding the grain silos, and the people order themselves according to his wisdom. But to get that meaning, we have to do something radical. We have to leave root I behind completely.
Here is where it gets incredibly fascinating. You are saying we might be looking at a completely different root word that just happens to be spelled the exact same way.
That is precisely what the lexical evidence suggests. This is a massive twist in the data. Welcome to NSHQ Root 2.
A homonym, like the English word bark. It can mean the sharp sound a dog makes, or it can mean the rough outer layer of a tree.
That is a perfect comparison.
They have the same spelling, they have the same pronunciation, but they have completely different historical origins and totally unrelated meanings.
Yes, and recognizing homonyms in ancient Hebrew is crucial for accurate translation. The major dictionaries, including Cassinius and Hiphil, present root 2 as a distinct entity, completely separate from kissing or smelling.
So where does the meaning come from?
To understand what this second root means, we have to look across the linguistic aisle at the Arabic cognate Nāshaq.
What does the Arabic neshiqah mean?
It means to join one thing to another, to arrange in order. Specifically, the data notes it was used for the act of stringing pearls.
Stringing pearls. I need to think about the mechanics of that action for a second.
It is a very specific image.
Stringing pearls is a highly delicate, organized, methodical action. You take individual, separate, chaotic items that are rolling around on a table, and you arrange them into a unified, ordered, sequential line. You are bringing order to chaos.
And the Ethiopic cognate Nāshaq follows the exact same logic. It means arranged or disposed in order.
Okay, that's coming together.
So if we take this root 2 concept of arranged order and apply it back to Genesis 41.4, the verse suddenly illuminates. Pharaoh is saying to Joseph, according to your command, all my people shall arrange themselves or dispose themselves in order.
They will fall into line.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. It completely removes the awkwardness of the entire nation trying to physically kiss him. It describes an administrative reality Joseph speaks, and the nation organizes itself according to his wisdom.
It fits the context perfectly.
The famine is going to bring chaos. People are going to panic.
Yeah.
But Joseph is going to provide order. He is going to arrange the nation the way a jeweler arranges pearls on a string.
It is an elegant, historically sound solution. But root 2 does not stop at civilian administration or jewelry making.
Where does it go next?
The texts show that this concept of arranging in order took on a very specific, aggressive application in ancient Israel.
I see it in the texts provided. The verb from root 2 shows up in 1 Chronicles 12.2, 2 Chronicles 17.1 and Psalm 78.9. But in these verses, it is not translated as stringing pearls or arranging civilians.
No, it takes a very martial turn.
It is translated as being armed with a bow or equipped for battle. How in the world do we get from stringing delicate pearls to arming warriors with deadly weapons? What is the conceptual bridge there?
It is a logical linguistic evolution when you think about the grim reality of ancient warfare. Let us trace the progression.
Okay, trace it for us.
The root meaning is to arrange items in a sequence. From there, it becomes preparing equipment, getting things ready for use. And in the ancient world, the most critical equipment you ever needed to prepare was your weaponry.
Because your life depended on it.
To be militarily equipped is to have your gear meticulously arranged, maintained, and ready for deployment.
That makes so much sense when you look at the derived noun forms. The texts list the nouns Nāshaq or neshiqah, Nehemiah 3.1 high and 1 Kings 10.25, and Job 20.24. All use this noun to mean weapons, military equipment, or a physical armory.
Yes, the armory is key here.
In Nehemiah, they are rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem under the constant threat of attack, and they specifically reference the armory.
And an armory is the ultimate expression of this root concept of ordered arrangement.
Think about the mechanics of an ancient armory. An armory is not just a pile of swords thrown into a dark corner.
If it is, you are in trouble.
Right. If your city is suddenly under siege by the Assyrians, you cannot have panicked soldiers rummaging through a disorganized heap of bronze and iron, looking for a matching shield or a bowstring that isn't frayed.
You'd be overrun in minutes.
An armory is highly organized by necessity. The bows are strung and hung in specific rows, the arrows are bundled by weight and length, the shields are stacked according to size, the spears are sharpened and aligned. It is arranged and ordered for maximum efficiency and lethal precision.
The order is what makes the weapons effective. Chaos in the armory means death on the wall.
Wow, yes.
So the Hebrew mind took the core concept of arranged order, the stringing of pearls, and applied it to the most urgent form of order they knew, which is military readiness.
That is brilliant.
The men described in 1 Chronicles 12 who were neshiqah were not just randomly holding bows. They were equipped, arranged, and ordered for battle. They were a disciplined unit, moving in formation. They were as sequentially ordered as pearls on a string, but infinitely more dangerous.
The linguistic leap from jewelry to warfare, connected entirely by the underlying concept of methodical arrangement, is brilliant. It demonstrates how practical the Hebrew language is.
It is incredibly grounded in reality.
It doesn't deal in abstract philosophical terms. It grounds its concepts in the physical realities of survival, whether that is storing grain in Egypt to survive a famine or preparing weapons in Jerusalem to survive a siege.
It forces us to realize that ancient people saw the world in terms of function and order. Everything had its proper place. When things are in their proper place, there is life and security. When these are out of order, there is chaos and destruction.
Okay, we have covered an immense amount of ground. We have looked at the qual and Piel stems for kissing, smelling, and familial reconciliation.
We have seen the political and idolatrous applications of Root 1.
We have uncovered Root 2, solving the Genesis 41 mystery and moving us into the ancient armories and battle lines. I am looking at the textual data, and there is one final grammatical stem left.
We are not done yet.
We have covered the qual and the Piel. Is there another layer to this word?
There is one final striking use of this word, and it is found in the Hiphil stem. The Hiphil participle of nshq, which is mashikot, appears in exactly one place in the entire Hebrew Bible.
If this root is so common used for kissing, bowing, equipping weapons, I would expect to see it all over the prophetic books. But looking at the data, it's almost non-existent in this specific form, except for one bizarre instance in Ezekiel.
Ezekiel chapter 3, verse 13. And the context here is critical. Ezekiel is a priest in exile in Babylon. He is standing by the Shubar Canal, far from Jerusalem, far from the temple.
A very bleak setting.
And the heavens open up. He receives one of the most intense, overwhelming, geometrically complex visions in all of biblical literature. He sees the glory of the sovereign God, the wheels within wheels, and the living creatures, the cherubim, carrying the divine throne.
It is a terrifying vision. These are not chubby babies with wings. These are massive cosmic beings with 4 faces, covered in eyes, moving with lightning speed. And what does Ezekiel say about them?
The text uses the word mashikot to describe the wings of these living creatures. The passage says the wings of the living creatures were touching one another.
The data defines this specific Hiphil use as touching lightly, brushing together, or creating friction or a brushing sound.
Yes, the wings of the cherubim are in motion, and as they move, they make contact. But it is not a chaotic crashing. It is not the sound of birds frantically flapping to stay aloft. It is a precise, continuous brushing.
I cannot get over the eerie beauty of this choice of word. Why would the writer use a word associated with human kissing or military armories to describe the terrifying mechanical sound of angelic wings?
It is quite the juxtaposition.
Ezekiel is seeing something completely alien to human experience. These are holy beings holding up the throne of God. And to describe the sound they make, he reaches for nshq.
It is brilliant because it perfectly links the 2 distinct roots we have been discussing this entire time.
Oh, I think I see where you're going.
Think about the mechanics of the vision. Root and ear is about touch, contact, the pressing of 2 things together, like lips in a greeting. Root 2 is about mathematical arrangement, perfect order, things lined up like strung pearls or weapons in an armory.
Oh, wow. The wings of the cherubim are doing both simultaneously.
Yes. They are making physical contact brushing and touching, which invokes Root 1. But they are moving in absolute, perfect, divine coordination an arranged order that never falters, invoking root 2.
That is amazing.
It is perfect, gentle, ordered contact. Wings that are mathematically arranged, barely brushing each other, producing this massive rustling sound as they execute the will of the Creator.
That is an incredible synthesis of the language.
Mhm.
We tend to think of the heavenly host in very passive, soft terms, like guys in white robes playing harps on clouds.
Which is completely unbiblical.
Right. But Ezekiel sees a divine machine, a
Right.
living, holy apparatus that moves with flawless, terrifying precision. And the friction of that perfection, the brushing of those ordered wings, is captured perfectly by the Hiphil stem of NHQ.
It reveals a theology of creation and providence. God's universe is not a heap of chaotic parts left to spin out of control. It is an armory of ordered elements, moving in perfect relation to one another under his sovereign decree.
Everything doing exactly what it was made to do.
The cherubim operate in complete submission to the Spirit, their wings touching, arranged in perfect sequence. They move where the Spirit directs, without turning as they go. It is the ultimate picture of created things functioning exactly as they were designed to function.
Let's take a step back and look at the vast linguistic landscape we have just traversed today.
We started with the basic human sensory experience. The qual stem gave us the scent of a family greeting, the intimate pressing of faces, breathing in the reality of a father or a brother. We saw how physical and vulnerable the ancient world was.
Then we saw that same physical gesture magnified by the Piel stem into a tear-soaked reunion in Egypt. Joseph weeping over the brothers who betrayed him.
Such a redemptive moment.
But we also saw how quickly the human heart corrupts that intimacy, turning the kiss into a severe ritual of idol worship, blowing a kiss to the moon in a quiet act of cosmic rebellion. We saw the depravity of taking what belongs to God and giving it to metal and stone.
We examined the political weight of the word, the terrifying demand to submit to the sovereign king in Psalm 2, to kiss the sun lest he be angry. We looked at the grim reality of ancient conquest.
Which led us to the great translation mystery of Genesis 41. Did the Egyptians kiss Joseph, or did they fall into line?
And that question unlocked root 2.
Right, where we discovered the beautiful, logical bridge that connects the stringing of pearls to the methodical, lethal organization of an ancient armory. Order brought out of chaos.
And we ended in the heavens, standing by the river with Ezekiel in Babylon, listening to the Hiphil stem capture the friction of angelic wings, perfectly touching, perfectly ordered, upholding the throne of God.
It is a staggering amount of meaning packed into 3 consonants.
It really is. I want to address you, our listener, directly for a moment. When we read a text in translation, we are given a massive gift access to the content of the document.
It is a gift we shouldn't take for granted.
But translation also flattens things. It takes these intricate, multifaceted Hebrew concepts and flattens them into single, unrelated English words. We see kiss, armed and touching, and our modern brains put them in separate mental files. We categorize them, put them in sterile boxes, and close the lid.
We miss the underlying architecture of how the original writers viewed reality.
We do. We miss the fact that ancient people saw the world through a lens of profound connectivity. They saw the relationship between the physical touch of a greeting and the physical friction of a wing.
It is all connected in their minds.
They saw the connection between arranging jewelry and arranging a battle line. The language reflects a unified view of reality, where everything is physical, everything is ordered, and everything demands a response of allegiance to the Creator.
Which leaves us with a final thought to ponder based on the texts we've examined today. If the ancient Hebrew concept for arming yourself with weapons comes from the exact same linguistic family as arranging things in methodical order, what does that say about how we prepare for conflicts today?
That is the pivotal question. How do we define armament?
I think we tend to believe that preparation for battle, whether that is a physical conflict, a professional crisis, or a spiritual struggle, is all about acquiring the biggest, loudest weapons.
We love a show of force.
We think it is about outward force. But the linguistic DNA of the word Nāshaq suggests something entirely different. True preparation and true armament might not be about the weapons you hold in your hands.
No, it is much more internal.
It might be about the internal order and arrangement you maintain in your mind and your spirit. An armory is only as effective as its organization. If your internal world is chaotic, unarranged, and undisciplined, handing you a sword won't save you. Real strength begins with order.
The order must come before the deployment. The pearls must be strung before they can be worn.
Precisely. We need to order our minds before we can draw the bow. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us. Keep your armory ordered, and we will see you next time.